That moment when you base your entire YouTube channel's name off of something movie related and it takes you almost 2 months to talk about a movie. Desert Power. Roll the fucking intro.
Soundstripe.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Siterion collection. Yes, today we're doing our first movie review on the channel, which I know it's funny because I literally said in the description to my channel that I talk about movies, and I've been here for 2 months, and I've only been talking about wrestling and yelling about Dwayne Johnson and Elimination Chamber, apparently. We are here today to talk about one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I think one of just generally the most anticipated movies of the year. Dune Part Two, directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Austin Butler, among many, many, many others. Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, so many. I want to make one thing very clear before we start. There will be absolutely no spoilers in this video. I know this is a very anticipated movie. I know that there are book readers and film watchers and book readers / film watchers who were very much looking forward to this movie, and they don't want this to get spoiled for them. I promise you there will be no spoilers here. I am going to generally talk about the plot. I'm going to generally break down some action sequences, very basically character arcs, not going to get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what happens, but I am going to be talking generally about this stuff, but I want to let you know, no story spoilers. You're safe here. Enjoy the video. So I think a good place to start with this movie is honestly my feeling when it ended, because I caught it in IMAX. There was a fan first screening that was really close to our house, which I was not expecting. I thought they would be more into Toronto, and granted, this movie, in hindsight, is worth fucking going to Toronto for, but we'll get to that later. And I saw it in IMAX. It was absolutely just an insane experience overall. The theater was packed. And I think a good place to start is that when the movie ended and the credits started rolling, I felt myself, check out of, back into the real world and out of Arrakis. Because that's where I was for 2 hours and 47 minutes. And when it ended, I was like, but I want more! It's too good! Fuck! And that's just a testament to how good of a filmmaker Denis Villeneuve is, and how well realized this world is, and how much of an experience this is, just cinematically, thematically. I was floored at how good this fucking movie is. I love the first Dune movie. I'll also be fully honest. I'll be fully transparent. I've never read the Dune books. Never read Children of Dune, Messiah, anything like that. I'm not much of a reader. I probably should be. But I did see the first Dune in theaters, also in IMAX. I've seen it a few times since then. Fantastic movie. My biggest issue with Dune Part 1, personally, was, as close as I was to be that's a 10 out of 10. That's a perfect sci-fi movie. There was a wall between me and the characters in the movie. I mean, I think the performances are great, obviously, but I found it hard for me to personally care or get insight into Paul and his mother and Leto and all the other characters in the entire movie. I just feel like there was a wall there that they didn't really break down, personally, for me. That feeling was solved 10 minutes into this movie. From the moment that this movie starts, it pulls you in. It's like it's like a wormhole in cinematic form. I was sitting there, and as soon as we went back to Arrakis, and it picks up pretty much directly right after the events of Dune Part 1, I was just sat right into it. I'll put it bluntly. I had to pee really bad for a good chunk of this movie. It was borderline unbearable for the last 40 minutes of the film. And I didn't get up because I was that locked in. I am a fidgeter. I kind of fidget around in my seat sometimes. Sometimes I'll get up and go out into the aisle so I'm not bothering anybody, and I'll check the time, movie, see how much time is left. I didn't do that once with this movie, because even though this movie is 2 hours and 47 minutes long, take away credits, probably more 2 hours, 40 minutes, something like that. It didn't feel like that, first of all. I think it was so immaculately well paced. It was so entertaining. It was so, absorbing. Again, absorbing is a better word, because, yes, it's very entertaining. We'll get more into the action sequences later. The action is absolutely fucking spellbinding in this movie. but just the story and the characters, even when it's just two people talking in this room, are so well realized, and the world building is so well realized. This world truly feels lived in. I want to be there. I felt like I was there watching it. Maybe I don't want to be there. There's a lot of war and stuff going on, and it's not that much different from our regular world. But regardless, my whole point being, I was very attached to Paul Atreides and Chani and their conflict within each other, with their love story, which I thought was very well realized, and just the war between the Harkonnens and the Fremen, and Paul's personal journey from the sort of humbled protector to the Messiah, which was genuinely heartbreaking to watch at a couple moments. And I think a huge part of that is because Timothée Chalamet delivered probably the greatest performance I've ever seen from him. And granted, I've never seen Call Me By Your Name. I know a lot of people talk about that movie. It's kind of hard to watch knowing what I know about Armie Hammer because, it's hard to bite into a movie like that. But regardless, Timothée Chalamet in this film, he is so, it's such a nuanced character. And that was, again, my problem with part one, is I felt like Paul was a very one-note, pouty, very upset all the time, kind of just he reminded me, not in the same level, but he reminded me of Anakin in the prequels, where it's like, dude, I get it, you're pure teenage angst, I understand that, but you're also just incredibly just so uninteresting to watch sometimes whenever you're not delivering bad dialogue. Now, it wasn't quite to that level with Paul Atreides, but he was kind of hard for me to get into. I love his journey so much because he just has, I think eyes are the windows to the soul with actors, and Timothée Chalamet's eyes, he just has this sorrow and this humility in his face that's he presents it so well. But he also has this intensity and this charisma about him to where you could buy the journey that he goes on. You could buy that he is a truly deeply feeling human being. But you could also buy that this dude is very impressionable, and he could also take charge whenever he really wanted to. And I feel like he commands that with such depth, such subtlety, and he blends the two so well. It's just absolutely fantastic in my opinion. There are multiple moments near the end of this movie, particularly the last couple scenes with him, that gave me chills. That scene of him approaching and walking up to all the people and raising the blade is one of the most jaw-dropping cinematic things I've ever seen in an IMAX screening, and that's not just because of how well shot it is, although that's a huge part of it, and the score being as incredible as it is, which is also a huge part of it. It really is Chalamet's command of the screen that really makes that work. He's aided, though, because I feel like every single actor delivers great performances, and I made a joke earlier about how there's a lot of well-known names in this movie. There's a bunch that I didn't even mention. Of course, you got Stellan Skarsgård. You've got Christopher Walken as the Emperor. You have Florence Pugh. You have a few others that weren't even technically announced, but I can't really talk about that yet because I said there was no spoilers. All of these characters feel real. And when I see Zendaya on screen playing Chani, I don't feel like I'm watching Zendaya play a character. I feel like I'm watching Chani, the character from the Dune franchise. I am watching Timothée Chalamet play Paul Atreides. I'm watching Javier Bardem play Stilgar. But they don't feel like they're playing or acting. They inhabit their characters so well, and I think it comes down to just how well written they are and how well delivered their dialogue is. Chani just has this, she has this fire inside of her, but she also, she's kind of the inverse of Paul in a way. And I just find that so fascinating to me. And it makes perfect sense that they fall in love. And it's a really beautiful romance. I didn't expect to get invested in the romance as much as I did. It wasn't a huge part of the first movie, obviously, because they were obviously building to this. But it's so, impactful. There's multiple scenes where it's just them being intimate, just sitting there, talking to each other. And I just feel it, in my chest. That's the thing I gotta say with this movie. Is just every scene, whether it's a big action sequence or just two people talking in a room negotiating, or you're just getting a landscape shot of Arrakis or any of these other planets, or people are arguing, or there's these huge crowd scenes. This movie reaches into your chest, it grabs you, and it just keeps pulling you and pulling you and pulling you closer and closer and closer until it builds up, and then it's just, I'm back there. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I just wanted to give massive shout outs to the performances as well. Obviously, Austin Butler in this film is fantastic. He's not in the movie as much as I thought he was going to be. He is a fantastic villain. His introduction is one of the most creatively staged like action sequences and just film sequences in general. I think it's one of the most memorable introductions to a villain I've seen in a very long time, purely because of how distinctly visually it is, but also because Austin Butler, he's really good at playing a freak. You could call him Doctor Strange if Doctor Strange ate ass and sucked toes. That's just him. And on top of that, Javier Bardem provides a lot of comedic relief that I wasn't expecting, and then the comedic relief becomes very darkly serious later on at the end of the movie, but I don't really want to get into that because I think that's part of the brilliance of the story. And on top of that, every single other performer in this movie, if I spent enough time talking about all the performances in this movie, I'd be here for the next 2 hours. And that's what Off the Cuff is for. You should go watch that. Or watch The Good, Bad, and the Bruv. It is very rare that a cast so uniform like this and so star-studded not only kind of disappears into the movie itself, but also just feels very, powerful. And they hold their own, but it's not just as the actors or the performers, it's just as the characters. Granted, a huge part of that, I think, is because this movie is also a technical achievement. This might be the greatest visual effects I've ever seen in a movie. It might have surpassed Avatar, The Way of Water. It is just for pure sci-fi imagery. It feels so grand. When you see these sandworms, particularly, I have to shout out, I'm so mad that they posted snippets of the scene where Paul rides a sandworm for the first time. If you see it online, don't watch it. You go watch that scene for the first time fresh like I did, because it is one of the most jaw-dropping IMAX set sequences I've ever seen in my life. It's so, genuinely terrifying. I feel like I was on a roller coaster. And I know we talk about theme park movies a lot, but it truly felt like a ride. And when that sequence ended, I felt my whole body just go, I was there. I can't really talk. It's such a transformative, experience for me. When the movie ended, like I said, I was just staring in awe of the pure, jaw-dropping spectacle, but also because of how gritty and real the action felt. This is a war movie at the end of the day. I know that some people probably didn't like Dune Part 1 as much because there wasn't as much action in it. This movie does have a lot of action in it. Not it's not a pure action movie. I think it's more of just sci-fi fantasy, but action is certainly a part of it. And each individual action beat, when they happen, all just have this punch to them. There's this sequence where the Fremen are taking on one of the Harkonnen, I don't know what the machines are called. It's one of these sand crawlers that's on the thing. And it literally, I feel like I'm watching Saving Private Ryan, but in space with sand. And that comes down to the visuals, obviously. Everything just feels so real and tactile. I feel like I can reach out and touch everything. I can feel every grain of sand. I can feel the sun beaming down on me. Whenever we cut back to Arrakis and we see the sun beaming through, it's oh my god, I can feel the heat, but it's just so beautiful and I want to look at it. I just want to take it in. Another thing I want to shout out, though, is the sound design, which is absolutely incredible. I think so many times in sci-fi, I feel like sound design is underrated because so many things can just sound the same. When a gun goes off, when a laser goes off, when a ship takes off. Every single sound effect in this movie, this is such a bizarre thing to go crazy over, but it's true. Every single sound effect in this movie has a distinct twang or guttural sound attached to it. And it's so it just makes this world feel so unique compared to other sci-fi. It makes you look at it and you go, oh my god, why isn't Star Wars this good? I've seen multiple Star Wars projects feel so uninspired and so broken from a fundamental level, just built on nothing. And then I see this based on a property that I have no attachment to. I never read the books. I didn't grow up on Dune. I've never even seen the original 1980s film by David Lynch. It just hit me in my chest. This segues into my last point, though, which is kind of antithetical to what I was just talking about, but still. Another thing I love about this movie is that despite the fact that it truly is an epic, it's this operatic, gritty, powerful, biting, just sinks deep into your soul action movie, but not just for action. the writing in this movie is so... It's not like the dialogue itself is so powerful, or there are great lines in the movie delivered very well, but the visual storytelling and just the themes in this movie hit me in my soul. And it left me feeling like, when the movie ended, the more I thought about it after I had come down from the experience, just being like, God damn, this is like the anti-blockbuster movie. And I think that could potentially benefit, potentially bite them, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going in expecting the rah-rah war epic. And while it is that to an extent, part of the point of the movie is kind of picking apart that war epic, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of us have that rah-rah winner attitude, and this movie pulls that apart in such a unique way. And again, it comes back to Timothée Chalamet's performance. I don't think the movie would be as impactful for me without him. Really, it's fanaticism that this movie is about deep down at its core. And I think the movie makes a couple really bold choices in both its action sequences and just in its writing to fulfill on those themes. And for me, that gambit that Denis Villeneuve ran worked perfectly. Because when the movie ended and after I had left and I just like felt myself decompress, and I've been thinking on the movie for the past like 12 hours since I've seen it, it really is one of the most powerfully dark and thoughtful character studies I think I've ever seen. Now, maybe that comes down to the material, and I know that some people, apparently there's been some changes to the book that I didn't know about. Again, I never read the books. Maybe for book readers, the people who love the Frank Herbert's original novel, maybe this is different for them. For me personally, until I read the books, I'm not really going to have that complaint. All I know is that it worked for me personally, and it made for one of the most chill-giving, but also like bone-chilling experiences the more I thought about how this movie is written and presented, and it's honestly unbelievable. Thesis is, folks, we need to appreciate Denis Villeneuve while he's here, and I'm not trying to say this like he's done making movies. He's not going to be done making movies anytime soon. The guy, he's relatively young. He's only 55 years old. But we need to appreciate Denis while he's here. Just for full disclosure, Denis Villeneuve has directed and written two of my favorite movies of all time in Prisoners and Arrival. He's also made some of my other favorite, like just not quite favorite movies, but excellent films like Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, the first Dune. And he truly is a visionary in a way that I don't think a lot of filmmakers are nowadays. He just, down to his DNA, understands how to place certain images in such powerful ways and place them at the exact right moments and use symbols and use character gestures and using his actors as a conduit for his great writing and great direction and themes in a way that I feel like a lot of filmmakers have kind of lost nowadays. I'm not trying to discredit a lot of modern filmmakers. I'm not trying to say, my movies are back, my MCU, but it's more just so my problem with blockbuster filmmaking in general that Denis has completely waded his way through. Denis, when he is batting at lower than average, delivers 9 out of 10 movies. When he's batting at full power like this, we get an experience like this, an experience that people are going to be talking about for years. This is a defining moment, not just in movies in the 2010s or sci-fi in the 2010s, just in movies in general. We're going to be looking back at how they put this whole thing together across both parts and go, holy shit, like, we're capable of this? Madam Web came out 2 weeks ago and we're capable of this? What the fuck are we even doing? As an inspiring actor, filmmaker, it's one of the most inspiring pieces of work I've ever seen. It is a towering achievement in terms of visual and cinematic storytelling. And it's an experience in general I'm not going to forget. It's one of the greatest experiences I have ever had in a movie theater. The movie was almost 3 hours long. I could have watched 3 hours more. Hopefully we get 3 hours more. For the love of God, David Zaslav, you're on some dumb shit lately. You better not kill Dune Messiah. I kind of have to see it now. But even if I don't get it, I am perfectly content with this 2-part epic. They complement each other so well. I can't wait to see a cut of both of them together. I'm sure somebody's gonna Kill Bill it or Hobbit it, and we're gonna mash it together, and we're gonna have a really like truly perfect cinematic odyssey in the form of the Dune franchise. And of course, I've mentioned it multiple times, see this thing in IMAX. It'll stick with you. I'm still like reliving certain action sequences in the back of my head every few minutes since seeing the movie. Overall, folks, it's simple as this. Dune Part 2 is perfection. I have no notes. I have nothing wrong with it. I think it's one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. The more I've thought about it, part of me was worried when I went to record this. I was like, is it going to wear off? Is it going to be as fun to talk about? I didn't think I'd be talking about the movie for this long at this point in the video. I thought this was going to be a short, relatively quick cut talk about the movie. But the more I thought about it, the more scattered my brain was, because I still am kind of in awe of how fantastic the film is. Please go see it. We have to support these movies. I mean, you're already going to go see it. Our theater was packed last night just for the fan first screenings. Apparently it was packed all over the damn country when when these screenings were happening. This movie is going to do fantastically. We need to support it. We need to be there for Denis Villeneuve and his true fucking vision, because that's just... he's one of the last great ones, I think. He's one of the great ones of our time, at least. And the entire cast, the entire team behind this movie deserves to pat themselves on the back for pulling off one of the most ambitious, incredible stories ever told in cinema history. And I guess technically literary history, but I have to talk specifically about cinema because that's more what I'm attached to. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this little ramble about Dune Part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Were you at the fan first screenings? Did you see the movie? Leave your fucking thoughts in the comments below. When you see it come back, leave your thoughts. Did you like it? Were you disappointed? Just let me know any of that. And as well, obviously, of course, you know, we're talking about movies. I have a little movie podcast I mentioned earlier called The Good, the Bad, and the Bruv. There it is, baby. Please check it out. We have a new episode coming out this Saturday, as a matter of fact, as of recording this. But overall, we talk about movies. We're going to do a few betweeners on wrestling as well. So you're getting basically me, but American, me, but British, and then also me. So, you know, it's pretty solid time overall. Have a great day, evening, night, whenever you're watching this video. Long live the fighters. See you guys later. Goodbye.